Hi, folks. I'm Jimmy Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And I'm D-Rock.
D-Rock. And this
D-Rock.
is Scream Bloody Movies, the podcast where we review a horror movie each week, go over the horror news, and give ourselves cool nicknames like D-Rock and B-Rad.
They call me Ice.
I thought they called you D-Rock.
Nice.
What do they call you?
That
How
was
many
a
nicknames
reference
you got?
Who
are you, Prince?
Focus. How many times do I have to tell you, man? My name's not Ernie. It's Ice.
Interesting.
Anyway.
How are you guys doing today?
I knew what it was from.
That's right, Lydia, because you're on the cool side.
The what?
The cool side of the
cool
street.
side.
Yeah.
Of the pillow?
Hey, that's wrong.
How are you doing today, you freak?
I'm doing awesome.
I can tell. What do you got in that tea?
No, I know. I was about ready to say, you don't know if it's spiked or not.
Yeah, I'm starting to have my suspicions. How are you, Lydia?
Grandpa's cough syrup.
Yeah, good.
Good. Me too. I'm doing okay. The weather's really bad here.
Yeah, it's been gloomy all day.
Yeah, has been gloomy. It's been not the best conditions, and my power blinked off like a couple different times throughout the day. So that was fun. I was about to text you guys. I'm like, guys, my power goes out. I'm going to be very annoyed. But it didn't. So here we are filming this lovely episode. We're going to talk about Dany Boyle's zombie flick. I say zombie loosely. Infected flick, 28 Days Later. But first, we're going to get into everybody's favorite part of Scream Bloody Movies, which is the horror news. So, guys, I don't have a lot. It took me forever just to find these pieces that I have. So there wasn't a lot going on today. The big news of this week is that tomorrow, by the time we're recording this, the new Texas Chainsaw is releasing on Netflix.
Ooh.
So we can look forward to that. We'll have a review of some sort of that eventually. But we can all watch it, and we'll all give our opinions on it. What are your guys' hopes of that? What do you guys think? What do you guys think about it?
I hope it's hilarious.
High hopes or low hopes?
Pretty low.
Yeah, mine's not the highest either. How about you, Derek?
Yeah, I have no hopes at all. So it has nowhere to go but up.
That's true. I mean,
It's
based
a
off the
steep
trailer,
hill, though,
and the the wonderful field that Leatherface chills in, it should be a good time. So that comes out tomorrow.
Dude, those pictures that you send us are hilarious.
Yeah, that's a contributor for Fangoria, who makes those. I need to remember his name. I'll put it in the description. But
Yeah,
he
you should put a couple of those on the screen.
Yeah, I will. They're great.
Right
He
here.
photoshops a new character into the field, Leatherface's field, every day until he forgets, and it's fucking great. I think today, not too long ago, he added the Ed 209 from fucking RoboCop. Chappie's in there.
I feel like this is a really great, also a really great place for that meme of, congratulations, you played yourself. You know what I'm saying? Well, that was a bad impression, but to my point, like, they kind of did it to themselves. That was a terrible shot.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, it was. It was on par with that segue.
You know what? I thought it was a great explanation of what I was thinking of, so it's fine.
I gotcha. I know what you're talking about. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think I'm getting a contact high from here, so it's fine. So let's get into the horror news proper. So this is interesting. Ruben Fleischer, who directed the Zombieland movies and the 2 Venom movies, has comments on the possibility of a third Zombieland movie. He said, he joked about it. He said that hopefully by 2029 there'll be another Zombieland. What would you guys think of a new Zombieland? Would you be open to a new Zombieland or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, man. Those movies are a lot of fun. So fun that dude.
Yeah. I think the first one's really funny. It's I remember renting it when it came out and really falling in love with it. I was like, this is a really fun, like, it's gory too. It has everything you want in a zombie movie. Then Bill Murray popped up and I was like, fucking sold, man. I am in. Because you know how much I love Bill Murray.
I actually I don't know if it's a funny story, but I have a story about Zombieland, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was Quincy and I's first or second date.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is kind of a tragedy. This is a downer, but, a couple of days before we went to the movie theater that we went to, there was a guy who, committed suicide in the theater with a gun. And then we went to see the zombie movie, and I remember thinking, man, this is maybe in poor taste, but yeah, anyway, that happened.
You have the most fucking random stories.
That's what I do.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a great date. At least, wow. Did you discuss that on the date?
We did actually discuss it on the day. It was a topic.
You're like, hey, can you believe that guy shot himself after watching this movie because it was terrible? No.
No. He probably went to see No Country for Old Men, is my guess.
That is a depressing movie. Great movie, but depressing. All right. Next here, we have a little bit more news about the Alien TV series. You remember me talking about that a while ago, right?
Yeah.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
But
so what we know here is we knew that Ripley wasn't going to be in it. But now we know why. This this show takes place before Ripley. It's the first story to take place in the franchise on Earth. So it takes place on Earth right near the end of this century, so 70 years from now. And so way before Ripley is in. What do you guys think of...
I have a question.
Yes.
Is Prometheus canon?
Yes, Prometheus is canon. Yeah.
So where does this fall in line with Prometheus?
I would imagine it would fall before it or during. It doesn't say. Oh, so it sounds like we're talking about 30 years prior to Alien, which how long was Prometheus? I think Prometheus was quite a bit before that even. So this takes place 30 years before Alien.
Because those two, Alien Covenant and Prometheus, I think, were prequels to.
Yeah.
The first
Alien they're
movie,
prequels to Alien. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I loved those two movies actually, and the whole franchise is pretty awesome. So I'm excited. Does it say where it's going to air?
Yes, it is airing on FX.
That's a tragedy right there.
Yeah, you kind of don't want it to be on regular cable, right? Basic cable. You want it to be on like HBO Max or a streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that way they can put that content a little bit more towards the edge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So,
FX gets away with a lot of shit. That's for sure. I mean, Sonny's aired on there for like fucking 15 years. They do some crazy gnarly stuff on there. So we'll see. We'll see. This bit of news here is J.K. Simmons, Ryan Quanten are starring in a movie called Glorious, which is a rest stop bathroom horror film. So a young man who was spiraling out of control after a bad breakup, his situation worsens after he finds himself locked inside a rest stop bathroom with a mysterious figure played by Simmons speaking to him from an adjacent stall. As he tries to escape, he realizes he is an unwilling player in a situation bigger than he could have imagined. What are you guys' thoughts on this idea?
It sounds freaky.
mm,
I mean,
It makes me think of a few other movies that kind of have a
mm-hmm.
yeah,
similar
me too.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
storyline.
Yeah, which ones particular are you guys thinking of?
The weird thing is the first one that came to my mind was ATM.
Yeah,
Netflix.
That's exactly what I was
that's
thinking.
one. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking of that one. There's a rest stop
That
movie.
and Rest Stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a rest stop movie. It's not quite the same like this, but it's, with the premise of him going into the place and then bad stuff happening. It kind of reminded me of a phone booth.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's kind of stuck in there. And then with it being in the rest stop and being accosted through the walls, it reminds me of Scary Movie 2. Or
Terrible.
Dumb and Dumber. Both are bad times being accosted in the rest stop. I mean, I'll see it. I like J.K. Simmons a lot. So he'd be good as like a evil weirdo, probably, right? Yeah, the great Barbara Crampton is also in this movie. So now I'm even more
Who?
excited to see it. And it is
Who's
does it
Barbara
say who's
Crampton?
you know who Barbara Crampton is.
I might know her
She's
face, but
Reanimator. She was in Puppet Masters we just watched. She's at the beginning of Puppet Masters with her boyfriend and the psychic.
That's
The great
right,
Barbara
yeah.
Crampton.
yeah.
I'm gonna cut that part out so people don't lose their horror cred for you. You son of a bitch, who's Barbara Crampton?
Hey man, I will never forget a face, but names, I'm real iffy on names sometimes.
That's true. That's true. I'm trying to see who's directing this guy, and it's not really showing me here. Oh, right here. Rebecca McKendry is directing it from a script by Todd Rigney, Joshua Hall, and David Ian McKendry. All right, cool.
Also,
And then-
just for anybody who watches this, don't ever ask me how to spell anything either. That's a no-go. That's a no-go.
Dude, so since you brought it up, I've got to mention something. Last week
Hopefully it's not too embarrassing.
you texted me, you texted us, and you created the face swap that was in last week's Phantasm episode of, Tom Atkins and Reggie Bannister, their face swap. Derek created that. So when you texted me, you said, I created the face swap. And then you texted me later and said, I don't know if you want to put the face swap in. Both times you spelled swap. SWOP.
Is that not how you spell it?
No, it's SWAP.
Swap?
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, so I saw
See,
it. I was
Lydia?
like,
Thank you.
I was like, Derek and his fucking spelling.
Well, that's weird because like
That's funny.
the autocorrect didn't even like try to fix that. I tried to speak Brian Kilmeade because the love child of those two people is Brian Kilmeade, and it was like Brian Kill Me or something like that. Anyway, it happens. I'm a terrible speller.
Yeah, I was looking at. There's another thing I was looking at. It doesn't matter. I was looking at something else you wrote. I think it was on the server, on our server, and I was looking at like the way things are labeled, and everything was just like horribly misspelled. I was like, I know what that means.
So, this is a true story because I work in a pretty professional environment. The first couple like weeks that I worked at this place, like my boss came to me and he was like, you need to proofread what you send in your emails. So I downloaded this app called Grammarly, and it like changed my life. It's fantastic. Anyway, saved my professional career.
Yeah, he probably just thought you were being fast, just typing fast and not paying attention. You didn't realize that you
Sure.
just cannot spell. So that's great. Oh, that's awesome.
I can hold my own in math. So.
Oh, you're great at math. You're the best at math. You're the opposite of me. I can do basic math, but you put numbers in front of me, I'm like, I don't care about that. But words, I'm like, yeah, that's where I'm at. And then you're like, tell us what you enjoy to do, Derek.
Manipulate spreadsheets, man. Manipulate data. I love to manipulate data. That's a true story.
Oh, it's one of the best things
You should
ever.
see my personal budget. It's next level.
If you need budgeting advice, welcome to Screen Bloody Budgeting. Starring Derek Lemaster.
I'm going to write a horror script one day, and it's going to be of a spreadsheet that attacks people. Game over.
Sounds very scary. Do you want me to proofread it for you?
I feel like Grammarly should be a sponsor.
They should.
It should be a sponsor. I use it every single day of my life.
Grammarly. Yeah, maybe they should send us some free trials or something. Be perfect. All right, guys.
I always wanted to try it.
It's good.
I wanted to.
They've got a free version. Anyway,
guys, this last bit of horror news. I have this last bit of horror news for you, and you're gonna love it. I'm gonna share my screen. It is, of course, another update on Rob Zombie's The Munsters.
Oh no!
I thought you were going to tell me it was canceled.
When is this movie coming out?
I don't know, but here's Herman's best friend, Flute, Dr. Wolfgang's hunchback assistant.
George Garcia.
Yep. George Garcia
Love
here.
him.
There he is. As Flute. That's Flute.
Amazing.
What do you guys think?
Love it. It looks pretty dark.
Yeah, it does,
doesn't it?
That is
not the word that I would use to describe this.
What would you use, Derek?
Terrible. I think that's the word that comes to mind. Don't ask me how to spell it, but I'm kidding. I can probably spell that one. But that looked pretty terrible.
What do you think, Lydia?
Yeah, it looked like I wouldn't expect to see like the fluorescent, lighting.
Yeah,
they were in like a lab or
neon.
something.
It kind of
the lighting that I have.
Yeah, it kind of has the vibe of like a Rob Zombie movie, right? Like it looks,
yeah.
Which is not what we're wanting from this movie at all.
Body.
Yeah, we're not wanting that shit at all.
The table.
Yeah, we don't want that shit at all in our Munsters movie.
Oh no!
You know
we
what?
want fun
comedy. You guys are going to be like, "Man, Derek, you nailed it for months. You nailed it."
Dang it!
Hey,
I'm already admitting that.
Lydia and I are just trying to be cautiously optimistic about this.
I'm more of a realist.
Yes. Was hopeful. Mostly hopeful.
Yeah, we never know. That could just be one shot. It could be, in a lab, like you said, Derek, and the rest of the movie could be bright and fun. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, Probably not. But
I'd
probably not.
steal a line from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but anyway.
But
But I'm not going to.
oh,
Now you're going to be like, well, what line is he talking about?
yeah, definitely wonder.
There are so many lines.
That's
There
like
are.
a 2-hour movie.
You know what?
There's
Comment
one line
in the-
that stands
in the-
out, I think.
Yeah. Put your comments in the comment section. What line do you think I'm talking about?
Trying to start a fight? No, I'm simply stating a fact, that's all. You fidget with your nuts a lot. You know what would make me happy? Got a couple balls and an extra set of fingers?
Oh
Is
my
it-
gosh.
That's not a pillow.
I feel like our comment section is just gonna be like all cursing now.
Yeah, from Steve Martin's rant. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no. Oh no, what? Yeah. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm thinking of.
Planes, Trains is a great one. It's a great one.
It is.
And that concludes the horror news, guys. Like I said, not a lot going on. Halloween is filming still. Stranger Things season 4 was, the release dates for those were announced today. And we found out that season 5 is going to be the last.
That's
But
appropriate.
yeah,
Yeah.
but perfect for the storytelling. Yeah.
Because this is 4,
Just sad-
right? This is season 4.
This is season 4 coming up,
Yes, they got
which
one
is the beginning of the end, is what they're calling it.
more.
Which is sad to think about.
It is, man. I love that show.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's one of the best. Sarah actually just recently watched all of it, so now she's caught up
Really?
and ready for season 4. Yeah, she never watched them. I watched
Wow.
them without her because she wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "That was good." I was like, "I know. What do you think I was talking about it?" And just binge watched it all the time. It wasn't because it was bad.
I tried to get my dad to watch it and to get into it, but he's too busy watching Zombieland.
Yeah, exactly. I will after I watch Zombieland 200 more times.
Yeah.
Speaking of Zombieland, tonight's movie is Dany Boyle's 28 Days Later from 2002.
Yes.
Which is 20 years ago, guys. 20 years! This movie is 20 years old!
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Well, what's really funny is last week when you mentioned that we were going to do this, when you picked this movie to watch, Lydia, I was like, oh, a more modern movie, without realizing that is 20 years old now.
Super modern.
Yeah, this movie's a real modern classic. There's people that are listening to this podcast that weren't even live when it came out. So
This movie was like the modern classic.
at the time, yeah. Let's talk about our experiences with this movie. Start with you, Lydia, since you picked it.
I think I watched it when I was pretty young. The first time I watched it, I remember me and my stepbrother snickering because it has some nudity in it. And I don't remember much about the movie, other than a few scenes. And I remember not really understanding or knowing, at the age that I was when this came out, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't really care about the movie. And then I watched it again, I don't know, probably in high school. That's pretty vague description I give out. In high school sometime, I don't know. And really fell in love with it and just kind of got obsessed with it, where I would pop it in the DVD player every night. It was like a comfort movie for me. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, that's great. Derek, what about you? Is this your first time seeing it?
It's not my first time seeing it. Let's see, man. I was a senior in high school when this movie came out. Thanks a lot for making me feel old, Lydia.
That was 20 years ago, Derek.
I know. So I have seen this movie before. Now I could not have really told you the beats to the movie. I could have
Mm-hmm.
maybe told you the premise. I've only seen it like maybe 2 or 3 times, and it's been a long time since I've seen it. That being said, Lydia, you did a great job picking a movie this week. This is a lot of fun to watch. This is an FYI.
Yeah, I saw this when it came out too. I would have been a sophomore in high school, and I rented it on DVD once it came out because of the hype surrounding it. And like you, I haven't seen it in a long time. I watched it probably about 10 years ago. Again, I rewatched it. It was on like one of the premium channels, and I was going through and then rewatched the sequel as well 28 days later or 28 weeks later. And I was like, this is I like this movie, but I haven't seen it in a long time. So like you, Derek, I couldn't do the beat by beat. Like I couldn't tell you what happens in the movie before I rewatched it. I just knew, and I think this is a really important thing about this movie is I remembered the feeling of the movie more than what happens. The tone, excuse me, the tone and the atmosphere I remember more than the events that happen. So it definitely made an impact. Um, First things first, one of the things you've got to understand about watching 28 Days Later, one of the first things you got to get over is the way the movie's shot. It's shot on DV film, basically digital video, using a digital video camera to shoot it to give it a certain aesthetic feel. And looking at it on my giant HD TV, it looks ugly because it's so standard def. That's the way they wanted to shoot it. If you can get past that, then you're gonna have a great time with the movie. Did you guys experience that watching it through a modern lens?
Yeah, a little bit.
There's some jarring. There's also some jarring cuts. There's also some jarring
but it
cuts
didn't
in the
bother
movie.
me too much.
There's some jarring cuts in the movie too that I noticed watching it this time because I'm watching it to critique it, and I was like, there's some interesting choices. Not bad, but just interesting kinetic cuts to quicken the pace. Like there's a shot later in the movie when that has to do with the windshield, and it's shot so quick. Like when the dude gets pulled out, it's like, which is a very
It's like at the end of the movie.
Well, that one too, but the one before that, when they attack him in the car, and he has to escape. There's like a quick scene of that. But the movie opens. Let's start with the beginning, and we'll kind of jump around, talk about whichever topics you guys want to talk about at whatever time. The movie opens with these people breaking into this lab, and we see some laboratory chimps hooked up, and some of them, one's hooked up to a thing with electrodes in his head. The rest of them are caged, and these guys are clearly like basically trying to free these animals. They don't enjoy illegal testing on animals, so they're here to break them out. And when they go through to do it, the scientist tells them not to do it because why? They're infected.
They're infected with, yeah.
They're infected with what? Rage. Which describes our current country. So he says they're infected with rage, and they have no idea what the hell he's talking about. And he's telling them, listen, don't do it because it's going to spread. Don't let them bite you, blah, blah. So, of course, they open the cage, let one of the chimps out. An old boy just comes and bites onto the woman's neck, who then proceeds to vomit everywhere. And then the shit is on. And all hell's breaking loose, anarchy. and then we cut to a black title screen, and just says at the bottom of the screen, 28 days later. What do you guys think of this opening?
Love it.
I've got some pretty interesting thoughts about this one.
Okay, go ahead.
So, man, you know that stuff like this does happen, right? But it's kind of shocking that like in the scene where they've got the chimp and he's watching the different screens, right? And they've hooked him up and they're trying to monitor. I'm guessing his brain function to see how he is reacting to this violence that's being shown to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really great shot. And then the other thing,
very
that comes
clockwork.
To mind is yeah, exactly. And the other thing that comes to mind is I had a boss once, and he would always tell me, because I have this knack for like trying to really help people with my job, and he was like, just remember, no good deed goes unpunished, because these people are trying to do something morally that is right, you know, and they break in there and they're trying to free these animals that are being cruelly tested upon, and they end up unleashing a virus that destroys the planet. So, or at least,
not the planet.
At least that air. Yeah.
Yeah, not the planet. We find that out later. No, I like the opening. Here's my thoughts on the opening. We could have there could have been a cut of this movie without the opening, and it would have played just fine, without knowing what the virus is. They decided to go the route of explaining to us what the virus is and how it happened, which is a great choice, because usually in these movies there's one of two schools. Either we know exactly what caused it, or we have no idea and we never will. So I like that we went this route of showing what it is, and also differentiating and explaining very specifically, this is a virus, a rage virus. These people are not zombies. We're not dealing with zombies here. They act like zombies in the fact that they swarm and they're hordes, but they're not eating human flesh. They're just killing people. Yeah. And they are just enraged with this virus that just fills them with rage, and they go to kill. They're not undead. You can shoot them in the chest and they die. Cut off their arm, they'll bleed to death. They're not like undead creatures, which is what zombies are. So that's what I appreciate about the beginning, is it sets it up and lets us know this is kind of like this, but the stakes are different. Yep.
It's a fair assessment. I like it.
So then we cut from there to the title card, like I said, 28 days later, which I love. I love that we get the title card as a transition piece, basically saying this is 28 days later from this. And it plays at the end as well. We do the same thing. And it's brilliant. Fucking Dany Boyle's great. I love Dany Boyle. Great stuff from Dany Boyle. And we cut from there to hospital room, and we meet our main character, Jim, played by who, Lydia?
Cillian Murphy.
And do you like Cillian Murphy, Lydia?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Lydia loves Cillian Murphy. So we're introduced to Cillian Murphy as Jim, and he's laying in a hospital bed naked, and you giggled because you can see his pee-pee.
Right. Yeah.
Is that what you guys giggled at as a kid? Yeah.
No. Yes. Yeah, that's what.
You're like, look. That's probably not the reaction he was going for, but happens to the best of us, doesn't it, Derek?
It does.
I don't think he expected really a lot of 10-year-olds watching,
Yeah, probably not.
How old I was, I don't know.
So Jim wakes up in the hospital and it's completely empty. There's nobody around. He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. You can see that he has had an injury to his head. You can see the staples in his head and where it's been shaved from them doing the staples. So he's just awoken from a coma. He has no idea what's going on. He's walking around an empty hospital, and he starts drinking sodas and trying to he's gathering supplies. And then he walks out into the streets of London, and it's empty and bare. What do you guys think of this just transition into this stuff? Because this bit lasts for a while. It's not just like a 10-second, he's like, oh, and then he walks around the hospital, then he's action beat. It's a long segment. And it's also a long segment of played to a music montage of showing everything in the aftermath. What do you guys think of this scene?
I love the music. I love how the music develops throughout the scene. So cool. So intense. And it's because at first you're like, okay, he's waking up from a coma in a hospital alone. No idea what's going on. And then you kind of have the fun thing of oh, you get to drink all the sodas that are, you get to go through stuff, which is when you think of oh, if it was zombies, I'd go to the mall, I'd go get get all the stuff I wanted or whatever. So you kind of have that, but then it's just dread, as he's walking through a silent city and realizing that something happened and he doesn't know what it was.
And he seems to be the only one around. Yeah. There's a great shot of him picking up money from the stairs. He sees people lying there basically dead. He's picking up money on the stairs that's just laying around. What do you think of this scene, Derek?
So it had you and I talked about this earlier. It had a lot of vibes related to the openings, or not the opening scene, but the first episode of The Walking Dead. And then I was like, man, I wonder which one came first, and you cleared that up. So this movie actually predates The Walking Dead. So it had that vibe going for it. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, I was like, yeah, The Walking Dead came out in October of 2003. And this movie came out in 2002, so it predates it by a year. The comic book. Yeah.
Which, if you put yourself in that situation, I can't think of anything that would be more scary than waking up and everybody is gone. You know what I mean? He plays it more calm than I would have. I would have been so mantic. I'd have been like, where is everybody? Especially when you start walking through the city and it's empty. I would have panic would set in real quick. I'd be going and hitting up the gun stores or something like that.
I thought the same thing.
It was really eerie. Really eerie is the vibe I got. But it sets the tone for the movie. It's a great second part of that opening.
It's an ingenious way to set up the aftermath of the event, because they're making this movie on a small budget. I mean, let me see what the budget for this thing was. It was probably $7. No, it was more than that. $8 million is what the budget of this movie was. $8 million. So with $8 million, they have to show that the world, that this city is, all this stuff happened. So instead of showing going the World War Z route, which is made for $200 million, and you see all the crazy anarchy, we cut to the aftermath, and we see that something has happened, and we don't know what. Yeah. And it's a very effective way to kind of, get all this stuff together. So I love the atmosphere of the opening as well, and I love him going through and kind of figuring stuff out. On your note, Derek, when you said you'd wake up and be manic and, he's more calm, I imagine that I would wake up and say, I made my family disappear?
I made my family disappear.
Oh my gosh.
And then just cut to me. I'm eating junk and watching filth. Come and stop me. So Jim is wandering along when he runs into his the first guys, the first infected, and they start like chasing him down, and he ends up getting saved by two people. This, wearing masks. Somebody's wearing a mask, and a woman wearing, face stuff, and they chop up the infected, and they end up setting this fucking huge explosion. This explosion is like, I love the way this explosion is filmed, because they film it from close and they also film it from way far away, so we see exactly how big it is in this area. And there's this, they lure him into this trap and they blow the shit out of this gas station, just obliterate it. They run and they block into basically what is a gas station and a convenience store, and they put down the cage. And we're introduced to our to two other characters, Mark and Celine, right? Selena? Yeah. Selena.
Yes.
Naomi Harris plays Selena, who plays Moneypenny in the new Bond movies. So as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, look, it's Moneypenny. I forgot she was in this, because I haven't seen it in 10 years. And so this is when we get the backstory of Jim. We find out who he is. We find out that he's a bicycle courier that basically got clipped and went down, and he woke up and all this madness is going on. And they fill us in on the backstory of everything fell. There's no government. There's nothing. Everything is toast. And don't let them bite you or spit blood in your mouth, because you'll turn. And you have, what do they say, 10 seconds probably?
Like 8 to 10 seconds, yeah.
Yeah,
like that.
8 to 10 seconds before they turn. So you have to kill them within that time frame. And so we're set up with the stakes. And we also are in the scene given our first quest, which is Jim is wanting to get home to his parents and check on his parents. What do you guys think of this scene? And what do you think of our two new characters?
At this point, the characters don't really have much. Well, actually, Mark was like, starts out strong with a joke.
Yes.
Yeah, he said something, and it's so like discombobulating to Jim, who just woke up from a coma and started running from zombies, and then just this guy is just like trying to tell a joke with a gas mask on his face.
Yeah, it's very disoriented to us, the audience. The joke was a weird one. It was, I don't remember it either. Actually, I couldn't hear it very well. I had to turn on the subtitles because he was speaking through the gas mask with an English accent, and I was like, I can't tell what he said. So I turned on, at that point, I turned on the subtitles for the rest of the movie, just to be sure.
Yeah, whatever it was wasn't very funny. And Jim didn't laugh, and he was like, oh, great, this guy doesn't even have a sense of humor.
Just like you, Selena. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys will get on well, is what he says, something like that.
Yeah.
What do you
also...
Good.
Right. I also was thinking about the fact that I was trying to figure out Jim's timeline of when he got hurt, when he was in the hospital, and how long he was in the hospital, because me and Jake were talking about that, and we were like, if he was out for 28 days, obviously the hospital wasn't out for 28 days. It was still running for a while.
I believe the hospital,
because he wouldn't have survived 28 days with no anything, no food, right?
It had to be, it had to be a couple weeks, right? I mean, or like a week and a half or so since since they evacuated everything. Because we find out, again, the place is not dead. Like, everybody's not dead. The island was quarantined, and people that could get out got out. But we don't know that at this point, and neither does he. So I'm guessing that it's, like you said, it definitely wasn't there for a month. It's kind of the same problem you run into with The Walking Dead inherently as well. Like, how long was Rick in that hospital, right? Like, how long was he in that
Mm-hmm.
coma and without any help? Um, so yeah, I think you're right with that. I think the
I mean,
timeline would be about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
yeah, I think it'd even have to be shorter than that, because there's like a rule of thumb. You can go four days without water. You can go 4 weeks without food.
Well,
But
he did
he
have
was
an IV.
probably, yeah,
He did
that's
have
what I
an
was gonna say.
IV.
He probably had an
Yeah,
IV, so that gives him,
Those don't last
a
that
couple more.
long.
So it was probably like a week or a week and a half. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah.
it couldn't have been that long. To your point. Um,
I don't think an IV would last a day
Well, how long
even.
do they say in this? They say in this bit how long that it's been since shit happened. Remember? I don't remember the timeline though.
I don't either.
What the?
I just still I my point is that I don't think he would be running so much. I don't think he would have any energy for that.
for
Or
sure.
like, depending on how long he was in there,
Well,
muscle mass.
that actually
Well,
does
he's a
come into
very
play.
thin. Yeah, it does. He's a
It does come
very
into play
thin
later in the movie.
actor
In the next scene, actually, a couple scenes later, it comes into play.
when they're going
So,
upstairs.
mhm. So I think in this scene, he's just when they attack him, he's running on pure adrenaline. It's pure adrenaline, People
Mhm.
can lift cars with pure adrenaline. So, you know, he's just pushing his way through. Um, but yeah, what do you think of this scene, Derek?
It so we knowing what follows after this, like you get this false sense of security, like okay, now they're setting up the team. This team's
This is
going to
their
be
team.
together through the
Yeah.
movie. You know what I mean? They're going to go on this adventure, and because Mark, he's been in other movies. I wouldn't say he's
Yeah.
a big name actor, but like I recognized him from other movies. And so yeah, I got this false sense of security of like how this movie is going to play out a little bit.
Well, yeah, and it also sets us up with like the team dynamic like you're talking about. But it also does a good job of explaining kind of the rules of the game, right? In a way that's not convoluted because they're actually telling Jim who doesn't know, and we as the audience don't know, so we're hearing it with Jim. So it's a very good way to give exposition is to tell it to a character that really doesn't know it instead of just spouting it as an exposition dump, and it's done in a conversational way. So they head off the next day to find Jim's parents. And Mark says, sure, we'll go help you find your dead parents, which is fucking brutal and terrible.
Right.
But we get to the house, Jim's parents' house, and find out that he was not wrong. Jim finds his parents dead in bed. They're both deteriorating because they've
because
been
they had
dead.
taken sleeping pills.
They drink wine. They drink wine and some pills to kill themselves because they said we're going to go to sleep because Jim's asleep and they wanted to meet. He has a photograph. They have a photograph of Jim, and they wrote on the back that they're going to come see him. Basically, they're going to go to sleep so they can see him. Very tragic, right? Very tragic situation.
Very
they end the little note with "Don't wake up." And he woke up, and you're like, "No, don't wake up." That's so heartbreaking.
Yeah. Then he starts, of course, crying and everything, and yeah, it's very heartbreaking. It's a very emotionally resonant scene, and then we get from that to they're like, "Hey, let's." Guys can sleep upstairs, and they're like, no, I'll sleep down here. You go upstairs. Like, no, we're all sleeping together. It's safer that way. So there's no power, right? There's no power. So Jim is. I'm kind of confused about when he's watching the home video, right? Is that just him, like remembering?
I think it was him remembering.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. because he's not actually
Yeah.
watching a projector. It's just shot like a home video.
Yeah.
His memory is shot on a 16 millimeter or an 8 millimeter even home video. So he's, remembering his parents and they're having dinner. And as he's doing this, he lights a candle, which was a terrible mistake. And he doesn't know. And we get these shots of like close-ups of the window and the top skylight, and then an infection busts through the window in the skylight, attack Jim. He's trying to fight it off. They get up, Mark and Selena get up, and they hack these infected up. And she's like, "Did you get any blood in your mouth?" He's like, "No, no." And Mark looks down, and he had cut himself when he was stabbing one of them, and it got into his arm, and they bled in his arm. And so he's like, he looks down at it, and she's like, "Mark?" And, he's like, "No, wait!" And she just fucking goes ham on him, hacks him to death. Asks Jim if he's got any blood in his mouth. He said no. She sees he's good. And then she just acts like nothing happened. What are you guys' thoughts on this whole bit?
It's so intense. I'm so freaked out by when she is hacking up the infected, all the blood that goes everywhere. I'm like, how are you not infected yet if you're doing this?
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's a huge mess. She doesn't have goggles on. Like, how did she not get any of that blood on her eyeballs or something?
Yeah. Into her body, yeah. Because the plot didn't call for it. That's why.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What do you think, Derek?
The whole scene, like, I don't know how I don't want to go into, like, being in this situation, because there's no way I would be on the bottom level of this house. Just as far as being, like, securing yourself. But that aside.
The bottom level would probably be the best place to be because you could escape. If you're on the top level, you're kind of trapped.
And it stinks up there.
Well, if you had, it probably does smell pretty bad. But like, if you had a window,
they all were covering their noses.
Yeah, and preparation, like, I don't know. Either way, that we'll get sidetracked there. But it's really powerful. The scene with his parents, like, it's so heartbreaking. Just wanted to touch on that, and then, man, when she, I feel like I would give you a chance to, like, you know what I mean? Like, once you start twitching or whatever, if you're showing signs, then hack you to pieces. But, like, she doesn't even do that. She's just like, you know what? We're going to be super safe. I'm going to go ahead and kill you. And if I were Jim, I'd be like, man, what did I just get myself into?
They'd be like, I think we're going to go our separate ways.
Yeah, hey, about that.
Check, please.
You scare me, so I'm going to leave.
You are a terrifying person.
He was like, how did you know? And she was like, I didn't, but he did. She was like, I could see it on his face that he knew, which I thought was an interesting, Yeah,
that's not good enough, man.
You could just see it on his face.
I remember I had a lottery ticket one time, and I thought I won, and I didn't.
Yeah, and that's what when he asks her, how did you know he was infected? And she said, and look on his face. Yeah, you're just like, that's a terrible judge of that, because I mean, it could be just reacting to the fact that he's got a gash in his arm, But
no kidding.
She doesn't take any chances. She's just gung ho.
You know what she should have tried to do? Cut his arm off and see if he could survive.
I thought originally that's what she was going to do, because I haven't seen it in a long time. And when she grabs his arm and hits it, I was like, oh, she's going to try to cut off the infection. No, she just hacks his arm because he's in the way to hack his face off.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn arm got in the way of your face.
I thought the same thing. She hacks his arm off, and I'm like, oh, maybe that'll save him. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. No dice. No dice. You know what? It works for it worked for Ash. That's all I'm gonna say. Worked for
Hey,
Ash.
it
He
worked for
he
Herschel too.
it did. Yep.
And what
For
he did.
Ash, 40 years later, he's still kicking the shit out of Deadites with one arm and a chainsaw on it. So take some notes, Selena.
Hey, there's only one Ash.
There is only one Ash. Well, Ash is the only one that could do stuff like that. But so then our characters, Jim and Selena, are off on the road trying to move on to the next place because that place is no longer safe. So on the road, they see this like skyline, and it has like a flashing
An apartment. Yeah, it was an
apartment. Yeah,
apartment
basically.
complex.
And it's
Yep.
and on the skyline, there's a flashing Christmas lights. So like up there, And so they're making their way through there. There's shopping carts blocking it and everything. This is where Jim is like saying that he's tired, that he can't,
Mhm.
can't go anymore. And she's like, "Well, you need this. You need food. You need sugar because your sugar's crashing." And they have like a funny moment where she's like, "So do you want Pepsi or this?" He's like, "Do you have any of this other drink?" And she's like, "Actually, I do have one of those." And as she goes to get it, they hear the infected, and the infected start coming up, and they start. Celine just takes off, and Jim's like, "Hey, Celine!" He's like trying to catch up.
CYA, man, CYA.
Yeah, basically, yep. And they end up running into like this big burly dude with a full bodysuit on and a riot shield.
Mhm.
And he's like, tells him which flat to go to. So Celine runs in and she's banging on the door, trying to get in. There's a little girl in there that's saying, like a teenage daughter is saying, "Where's my dad? Where's my dad?" Jim kind of hangs back with a baseball bat to like help this guy potentially. But this mystery man just dispatches these infected with relative ease, really. He just clubs them and throws them off. They just tumble to their deaths. And he goes in, and we find out that he has a daughter, that he's a father, and his name is Frank. Introduced to Frank. And what's his daughter's name?
Hannah.
Hannah. Yeah, so Frank and Hannah. And you guys recognize Frank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course.
From like a million different movies, Brendan Gleeson.
Yep.
Brendan Gleeson.
Yep. So
he was in this movie about wizards.
Small movie. You might have
it.
seen it. Might have seen it. It's a small film. I don't know, if you've heard of it. But basically, they've been making their home here at the, kind of. They have like a little life here at this moment, at this time. But the problem is they're running really low on supplies. We find out that they have to shit in a bucket, essentially. Because there's no
Like
running
one
water.
does.
There's a great moment where he's like, Jim goes and shaves for the first time. Shaves his head, shaves his beard off, and, decides to look like Cillian Murphy. And is that your favorite part of this movie, Lydia? When he decides to look like Cillian Murphy?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because prior to that, he looked like a disheveled like punk rocker.
Yeah, with weird hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
As Sean would say.
And look at his hair. It's horrible.
There's this great moment where after he shaves, Frank talks to him and he's like, there's a spare bedroom in there. And he's like, "Oh no, we're not. I'm gonna sleep out here. We're not together like that." So the next, what do you guys think of this whole sequence? Because the next scene we find out that they're running low on water. That it hasn't rained, and he's like, "What are the odds that it hasn't rained in England, in London?"
10 days.
Yeah, are you
10 days.
kidding me? It rains all the time there. That's all it does. So they don't have any water. They're running low on water. And they hear a radio call saying to go to this specific outpost for help. and they're like, it's a recorded message, but that's the last thing that's broadcasted. So I think we should make our way there. And, you know, Selena's not for it at first, but then they're like, we all need each other to survive. So let's do it. And there's our gang is together. That's our real team.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think of this little sequence in the introduction of Frank and Hannah?
I love Frank and Hannah. They're so sweet. They've just been together, just like keeping each other sane. I love a good father-daughter relationship. I watched most of the scary movies I've ever seen with my dad, and just that bond that we have. I think me and my dad could probably outlast a apocalyptic kind of infection like that.
Well, especially with your dad's knowledge of zombies via Zombieland, I think you'll be fine.
Yes, he's very yes,
Hey,
exactly.
He's very
And he is
in tune with the rules.
yes, and he is a Walking Dead fan as well, and he's watched all of them and not stopped.
He just loves the zombies. He loves him some zombies, doesn't he?
He does like some zombies.
Jim will do another zombie movie just for you. If you comment on this video.
Yeah. Would it be weird? We should have your dad as a special guest one day. I've never met your dad, so I don't know if he'd be down for that or not, but
I don't know if he knows what a podcast is.
That's fine. That's fine.
You can have him write
he knows
for us.
Yeah. I will.
To whom it may concern, zombie movies are great.
I once tried to get this lady onto a go-to meeting, which is kind of like what we're on right now, so that we could share our screen and go over some stuff. And I get an hour later, she's still not on, and my project manager's like, "You need to go to the Google." And I'm like, "Man, this is going nowhere. We might as well cancel this call." You two are completely technology inept. But anyway, so I could help your dad.
All right, he might need
what
a
are your
lesson.
Thoughts?
So,
what are your thoughts, Derek, on this whole sequence?
I love the father-daughter dynamic that's introduced here, and it sets up probably the most tragic scene in this entire movie later. But these two are just trying to survive, and they're more on the weak side of things, where you've got now this badass lady who kills friends. Yeah. That's maybe a good point. So but she's ruthless, and then even I think that he could probably hold his own in this situation, and he does later on. And they realize that 4 is better than 2. Both sides agree to this, to form this team that's now gonna embark on this journey. But it's a great dynamic, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, there's actually a moment. I don't know if it's here or later, because it's this whole next section. Because like I said, I've only watched it once in the last 10 years, so it's not like Halloween where I could just close my eyes and say, "Oh yeah, this happens." Scene to scene to scene to scene. There's a great moment where we find out that Selena is not some just heartless, ruthless person. There's a moment where they talk about Hannah, and he's like, "Well, she has her dad. She'll be fine. She'll survive this." And she says, "I don't want her to have to deal with this at all. That's not what this is about. I don't want her to be in this. I don't want this to be a thing that she has to deal with." So
I think that is later.
Yeah, I think it is later too, when they're at the yeah. So they our motley crew is off, and they are off in this Frank's car, and they end up deciding that they're going to take this specific way there, which is like a tunnel, which is a terrible idea because it's going to be trapped with cars. And Jim says as much. He's like, It's like, you know why it feels like a dumb idea? Because it's a dumb idea. It's not a good idea. It's a dumb idea. So they decide to try it anyway, and they end up ramping over cars. And they're riding on top of them and stuff, which is fun. There's a funny bit where they're all laughing and having a good time with it until, of course, the tire pops, because of course that's going to happen. You're driving over jagged metal.
And glass and bodies.
And glass and all sorts of things. So they get a flat. What do you guys think of this scene coming up where they get a flat? Like, isn't that like just a terrifying concept that you're in the middle, you're in the middle of this situation. You're trying to avoid all people because you don't know who's infected. And then you get a flat tire.
Mm-hmm. So
Especially
scary.
since it could have been avoided
by taking a different route.
Doing that. Yeah, that's a really, you're going to trap yourself in a dark tunnel. You don't know what's in there. I mean, for all they know, it could be like the biggest horde that they've ever seen in their lives. So yeah, really stupid idea to put themselves in that little box. But then once you get the flat, you might as well just be like, you know what? It's good while it lasted. But to their credit, they do fix it. It's very suspenseful. It definitely,
especially
does what it's supposed to do.
What do you guys think when the rats come? Like,
I love it.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Isn't it like such a great? They're like, oh, look, there's the rats, and they start coming, and then they realize that the rats are coming because of the infected.
Yeah,
and it's just such a cool precursor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have that going on while Hannah's trying to put on the tire, and Jim and Frank are holding up the car so she can put the tire on. And then they just barely get it on. And then they're attacked and they...
If this was...
They get out
just
in time.
Just in time.
Yeah, if this scene were in Shaun of the Dead, when Jim pokes his head out the window and is like, he would have fallen out of the car.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a very suspenseful scene, great scene, and they make it out finally.
Mm-hmm. I like the shadows.
Just barely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they're approaching.
You see the rats, and then you see the shadows start to show on the wall.
It's a
of every
great shot
running towards them.
That shot is very Romero-ish. It's a very Romero shot. Reminds me, we'll get to it when we get to the Romero movies, but the opening shot of Day of the Dead is one of the all-time best shots in horror movie history. When we see the newspaper flap and then we'll talk about it. We might need to do that one here sooner rather than later. I know we had to go through all the rest of them, but damn, I love me some Day of the Dead. I love Day of the Dead. Yeah, so we get this bit where they end up stopping. We get montages of them, seeing them kind of bond and travel. And they end up going during this time, they go to a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think of the grocery store scene?
It's the best.
That is the scene that you're talking about. That's the thing you're talking about, Lydia.
Mm-hmm.
The zombie movie,
just
staple,
going
right?
through a grocery store. I love that they go through and they get all the best stuff, and then he leaves his credit card on the counter.
Just in case.
You don't need it. You're never gonna need that again.
Yeah.
See, I probably would have approached this a little differently if I were them. I would have tried to search for a bigger vehicle, because you don't know how long you're going to be on the road. You stockpile is what I would have. I mean, they put everything.
You need to find an RV.
Car, and it's sticking out the back where they can't get the trunk closed. But
see, nowadays we'd get an RV with solar power, and we'd be good to go. Have some running water, some heat. We'd just be living on the road.
Yeah.
I'd stay in that store. I would just stay there.
Yeah, the store's nice. Yeah, because it has power, right? I mean, it has electricity. And so they're, roaming around the store, and, they get everything that they, stuff that you don't have to cook, of course. In this scene, also, Tallahassee.
Where he like looks down at something. He was like, "You can eat this raw. You don't really need to cook it."
There's a
Yeah.
scene in
I
this.
think you could eat
There's a
this.
scene in this part where there's a scene where Tallahassee's looking for Twinkies. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong movie. Zombieland.
Yeah.
Your dad would know exactly what I'm talking about. No, there's a scene where Frank is reading. I love it. He's like looking at this alcohol. He just keeps looking at it. He's like, it's well bottled. And he just keeps talking about all the virtues of this alcohol. And Jim just kind of like walks away and goes sees the girls. But he's just like, he looks around. He's not there anymore. He's like, oh.
I thought that was
When
so
he grabs, like,
sweet.
12
That's
bottles.
a sweet scene.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, he
It's
grabs
very
a few
good.
more.
Yeah, might as well. Might as well grab them.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get the camp scene is the next bit where they're like camping out and eating their food, and Selena's having trouble sleeping, and so they're all kind of having trouble sleeping, and so is Hannah.
Selena's not.
And no,
Hannah is.
Yeah, he's
Jim
asleep.
is.
Jim and Hannah are having trouble sleeping, and he's like, they're going to take Valium essentially to knock themselves
Well, yeah,
out.
they wake her
and,
up and they're like, "How did you get to sleep so well?" Just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
dear."
After she almost attacks them with a knife, she's a little stabby.
She is.
She's like the woman in lavender last week, Lydia. She's a little stabby.
She's a little stabby.
So, yeah, that's sweet because she's like, "Dad, can I have one?" And he's like, No. And then he says, finally, "You can have half of one." He's like, "Oh, I knew you were a big softy, Frank."
Yep.
So then everybody falls asleep and Jim wakes up and everybody's gone. They've left him. He's in the field by himself. There's nobody around. And then, he wakes up. You find out that he's asleep. He's actually mumbling in his sleep. It's very sweet. Frank goes over to him and he says, "Hey, you're okay. You're talking in your sleep. You're fine." And he says, "Thanks, Dad." And he goes to sleep, and Frank kind of smiles to himself. Very sweet stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which makes all the more tragic what happens next.
I know. This is the worst scene in this movie.
I know.
Yeah.
So they end up
Worse
at
because
the
of the tragedy.
yeah. What happens? Yeah. So they end up at the base where they were told to go, and it looks to be deserted. There's nobody there, and Frank basically loses his shit because he's like, all of this, we got here just to find nothing. We're screwed. He yells at him, freaks out on everybody. They don't, they've never seen Frank act like that before. And he goes, and there's like crows above him bothering him. So he goes they're making noises. So he angrily hits at him, and a drop of infected blood drops from there and lands right in poor Frank's eye.
You know what?
And that's how he became Mad Eye Moody.
Yep, that's how it happened. That's how it happened.
I would have rather
Got the
seen
Mad
him
Eye.
getting attacked by somebody, or like, something that is. It's so sad the way that it happens.
That's why
so
I'm glad it
innocent.
happened that way. That's why it had to happen.
Yeah. It's
That's
tragic.
why it has to happen that way. Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
And it's confusing to everyone. Nobody understands why he just got infected all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
Especially when he tells her, like, he knows it's happening, and he tells her he loves her. He's like, I love you, right? I just want you to know how proud I am of you, and I love you. And then he's like, "You got to get away from me. Go, get." And then that's when they realize he's becoming infected, and of course, Stabby's like, "Kill him." Kill him, Jim. And Jim's hesitating because he's like, "Wait, what's going on? And I can't kill this guy. I love this guy." And then all of a sudden, shots ring out. Boom, 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 boom. And he's shot by the military. So you guys, how do you feel after this? Devastated?
Yeah,
Yes.
this was a low point for me.
Yeah,
I think I went
especially
to the
since
bathroom
Hannah.
and cried.
Yeah, especially since Hannah had to watch her dad get gunned down after he was infected. You know, so we
I
find out that
remember
Go ahead.
I just remember being extremely upset at this scene when I was younger watching this. Like for the
Yeah.
first time. I was just like, this is the worst thing ever. I hate this.
So when we're introduced to Frank, I knew he wasn't going to make it to the end of the movie. Just
No.
the rules of horror movies say that he probably will not. Right? The odds are not in his favor. Let's say, but it's funny. I hadn't seen this movie in 10 years, and this is the beat I remembered. I remembered that Frank gets infected and is shot to death, and I'm watching it. I'm like, this is fun. And it gets to the scene, and I remember just feeling like the flop sweats. I'm like, oh no, I know what happens here. Like, I actually remember this bit. I know exactly what happens. And then it happens. I was like, yep, I was hoping I was wrong, but yeah, because of course he's not going to make it, more likely than not. But I wanted to see him make it longer because I enjoy watching him. I wanted to just spend more time with him. So we end up on this. We find out that the military are still around, and they take them to their home base, which is this giant like mansion. And we find out that they've fortified the whole place. They have landmines. They've done the whole bit to like fortify this base. And what's the main general's name? What's his name? It is Henry West, Major West, and he brings him in.
Christopher Eccleston.
It is Christopher Eccleston. The first of the new Doctor Who's.
Number 9.
And of course, number 9. And of course, also the villain in the great Nicolas Cage masterpiece, Gone in 60 Seconds.
That's true.
Nice. He's also he's in the Marvel franchise as well. Which one is he? I forget which one.
Yeah. I'll tell you.
He's a bad guy alien with, you would never know it was him because it's all makeup, all prosthetic.
Yeah, it is
Frost. He's the Frost.
Thor. He's in Thor: The Dark World. Yeah, Thor: The Dark World.
Yep.
He is.
I was watching that for the first time, and I was like, had no idea it was him until the end, and I heard his voice, and I was like, "That's Christopher Eccleston."
You know what's funny?
He's like, how would you know that?
You know what's funny? You know what's funny is like you're talking about it, and I'm like, he isn't a Marvel movie. Why can't I picture it? It's because it's Thor: The Dark World, which is the worst. It's just the worst. It's the worst of the Marvels. Sorry, Chris. You got stuck in the worst of the Marvels.
He did great, though.
Dude, he's terrific. I love him. And pretty much everything he's in, he's always just great.
Yes.
He's a great doctor, too. I thought he was a good Doctor Who.
Love him.
So, guys, this whole bit takes up the rest of this. Like, basically, the rest of this movie is in this mansion. It turns Resident Evil a little bit. But we get some of my favorite Day of the Dead vibes going on here too, with the kind of the soldiers gone mad, essentially. And we don't know that at first. We get, they're introducing them to things and showing them how, they're having food, helping them cook food, and he shows Jim around and shows him the freaking infected dude they have chained up in this movie's bub, we might as well say. We have this guy.
Mailer.
Yeah, Mailer. He introduces it. He's like, this is Mailer. He turned last week or whatever. We're going to see how long it takes him to starve to death, essentially. because we have to decide, we have to figure out what's going on with the infected. And so that's your first hint that there's something not right with this guy.
Well,
And there's
I don't even think it's that, because I feel like that would be a legitimate experiment you'd want to know the result of. That specific one. Now, maybe the way that they've done it, chaining him up like he's a dog,
yeah,
like like an abused dog.
I would never chain up a dog.
Probably, yeah, would probably be like a red flag. But but yeah, it is very like, hey, we've got our stuff together. We're gonna rebuild society. You're safe here.
Yeah,
that kind of mirage.
and there's a sergeant or one of the soldiers that are completely on the opposite side of West. What's his name? Mitchell.
The guy
right?
who's still in it to win it.
Yeah, Mitchell. There's a guy that's like,
Yeah.
we see them butting heads. We don't know why yet. We're just like, oh, this guy and this guy aren't getting along, and they're wanting you to believe that this Mitchell's a problem. He's an asshole, and West is just bringing everybody in, trying to help everybody the best they can. Well, eventually, there's this cool attack scene where they try to the infected try to get in, and they just blow the shit out of them, machine gun them, blow them up. It's a big action beat. It's fun. It's a fun scene. And we also get moments of Jim and Selena like becoming like a couple. Essentially, they starting to develop feelings for each other. He kisses her, and they kiss. They start to kiss, and then she leaves the room.
That's when she was upset about Hannah losing her
That's
dad.
when the Hannah losing her dad thing. And because she's like, I don't want any of this. So they have all these dynamics are at play at the same time. And then the other shoe drops. And we find out that because he pulls it, he's like, we need to have a drink. And he takes, because this one guy was like trying to like flirt with, not necessarily even flirt, it was like groping on Selena. And Jim steps in and gets knocked down. And he's like, hey, he breaks it up. He's like, hey, you need to have a drink with me. And he takes him in, and basically Wes explains to him that the world has ended, that they're going to repopulate the world. And he promised his soldiers women. So he's going to keep the women. And he can either join them, be part of the brothers, part of the family, or he can, try to basically fight against them and lose. So Jim immediately takes off, tries to grab Hannah and Selena and get out of there, and he's knocked unconscious. And when he comes to, Mitchell's holding a gun at the other soldiers and saying, it's not happening. This is not happening. This is not how it's done. We're not going to do this. And he ends up getting overran too. And Jim and Mitchell are tied up to radiators. What do you guys think of this whole bit? Like, what were your thoughts when you were watching this? Like, what the hell is going on, right?
Yeah, it's so scary. It's like gut-wrenching. Like, this is like worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. Awful.
Like, they hopped into bed with the wrong people. Yeah. Worst case scenario.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Terrible luck. Unfortunately, like throughout it, like that's part of human nature. It's a dark side of human nature, but you do have people who would resort to that in a scenario like this. And it's so sad, but yeah, it definitely raises the stakes for sure. And then just their commander is the one who promised them this. It's
the CO, their commanding officer, CO.
Yeah. And you have one guy
standing up.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, one guy standing up.
And he kind of has there's a moment where they're at dinner, and he's from a philosophical perspective gives this, like this is kind of like nature playing itself out. Like the planet's been here for billions of years. We've only been here for like a little blip of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
once we're gone, like the planet will recycle it. Like he had a bigger picture, you know, and that was a kind of a small telling of where he is in
Well, yeah, he doesn't want to
relation to
lose
the others,
his, and he doesn't want to lose his morality or his humanity
for
to this
sure.
situation, which is the big part. He doesn't want to lose his humanity.
Yeah.
And there's also this is the bit where the, things have switched. No longer the zombies, the infected are no longer the threat. The threat
Mhm.
are these bad people, which is a great thing actually in every good zombie movie. That's the way it is. In every single Romero movie, the villains are not the the zombies outside or the creatures outside. The villains are the people that do terrible things and exasperate the situation.
Yeah.
So, I love this twist here because then you just see human nature is the worst part of us, right? So then basically they go to take Jim and Mitchell out to be shot. Essentially is what's going to
Yeah.
happen. But while they're
Spewed.
in there, while they're chained up to the radiator, Mitchell is saying the world is not ended. The world is fine. Everything is still ticking. He's like, why do you think the world, they're mad. He's crazy. The world's not ended. Do you think if the world's ended, you'd see airplanes flying overhead? Do you think that, you think that the rest of the world is going on like nothing happened? What would you do if an infection happened in a small little island? You would quarantine the island. He's like, we're in quarantine. Like that's what's going on here. And so that revelation is, it could be this guy talking crazy, but it pays off here later because the very next scene they end up in the woods. And what happens here, Lydia, in this woods?
So I don't know their names, but two of the officers, it's like kind of like the skinny one and the macho one that was groping Selena,
Yeah.
are taking them out to execute them, and they come across this like pile of bodies that are either other people that had been executed or infected people that they've just
Yeah,
like
it's up to
thrown
your
over here.
discretion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to your
Could be a little bit of
interpretation.
both,
Yeah.
because there were other cars that had made it to that
Mm-hmm.
that checkpoint. Uh, so the macho guy kind of decides like, I'm gonna stab this guy instead of shooting him so that he suffers.
Yeah.
And the skinnier guy that was cooking, the cook, was like, you don't do that, that's not okay. He realizes that's not good.
Yeah. That's a line he's not willing to cross.
Yeah. So he stops him by shooting the guy himself before he could be
Shoots
stabbed.
Mitchell.
And,
Yeah.
And they start arguing about it, and Jim takes off.
Yeah, it gives him the perfect
while they're not looking.
Gives him the perfect opportunity to escape. Yeah, because they're infighting.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't actually take off.
Super
though.
intense.
No, he hides.
Yeah, that's the
within the
smartest thing
bodies.
he could. Yeah, smartest thing he could do.
He hides in the pile of bodies and just blends in. Because he looks like a dead body anyways.
They start shooting the bodies after this, don't they? Like when he
At one point, yeah.
They take off and realize that he probably didn't get very far and come back and start shooting the bodies, thinking that that's what he did, but he had already jumped the fence.
Yep, because he used his shirt to jump over the razor wire. And when he's laying on the ground on the other side, this is where that scene pays off. Because he looks up, and as he's staring at the sky, he sees a plane fly overhead. So he knows he's right. The world is still going. What do you guys think of this reveal?
I love it.
like them being in
I don't know what
quarantine
else to say.
Yeah.
reveal.
Yeah.
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 I mean, so the sad thing is that it only took these group of men. Let's say it's 35 days because there's a little bit of a time lapse. 35 days to evolve to this chaotic group of people. That's no time at all.
No, it's
Anyway,
very Lord of the
good.
Flies ish. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's
Because
just
they're
like,
already
I
like,
mean,
oh,
well, I guess
go
we just have
crazy.
to repopulate the Earth.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
What?
Yep, we're just gonna take these
Yeah.
women and do whatever we want with them. But yeah, I love the escape scene. And also like before that, the logic that this guy is, I mean, he is the intelligent person of the group. And he's thinking through this very logically, like, hey, this probably is not what we think it is. Like, most likely outcome is they've kept us here, quarantined us. Um, and the larger picture is like the world is still out there. We just have to survive this. But I think it is genius the way that he hides from these guys, because just dives into the dead bodies. They're gonna think he took off running.
Yep.
So
And
pure
it's
genius.
also, I love the way the reveal is well revealed is beautiful. Like he's just laying there catching his breath because he just went through this intense experience, and then he just sees the jet overhead and this realization on his face, like, oh my god. Then he realizes there is a world worth fighting for, and I've got to go back and save these women because they're about to be horribly violated.
Mm-hmm.
And when we cut back to the mansion,
Yeah.
that's basically what's going on here. Is
Yeah.
they're making him get dressed. She makes her take some pills, so that
Yeah.
way she doesn't care about what happens to her body. She's like
To numb
can
the pain. Or,
numb the pain of what's about to happen to her.
yeah.
And Jim decides to he decides to wreak havoc. So before this happens, good old Christopher Eccleston and everybody head off to go find Jim because Jim starts sounding this alarm, and they're like, well, it has to be him, and they're like, well, he jumped over the fence and we just thought he was dead. He's like, well, that's stupid. Let's go. So they go off to find him, and basically they all get Jim takes out a few of them, with some pretty clever tactics, knocks a couple of them out and what have you. And then the zombies, or the infected, start to attack. And, yeah, what do you guys think of this attack scene?
I think it's genius. So this is when he's back at the mansion, right?
No, before the mansion. When he's...
Oh, before the mansion.
Yeah, the attack scene where he takes them all out and Christopher Eccleston's stuck in the Jeep. When he fights them off at the Jeep, then runs off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's kind of a blur to me. Go ahead, Lydia. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because he's running through the the upper deck and it's a building or something that he's hiding out in.
It's like the abandoned remnants of the base. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a cool scene where it pans. There's a big army truck, and it pans, and he's standing at the back of it, and the guy's coming around the side, and then he turns and he's not there. And then you see a glimpse of him running.
Yeah, just
on the
a
top
shot
rafter.
of it. Yeah. What do you think of this scene, Lydia?
It's awesome. I love how scared Christopher Eccleston's character is. He realizes, okay, this is not good. This guy is coming for us, basically.
Yeah. And not only that, but he sees that the infected have broke through. So it's it's worst case scenario, He's like, oh my god, we got to get back inside because this is bad news. This is not good. And he has a big head start on him. And so this is the mansion. This is the mansion scene, Derek, where he hops over and he first he blows up a couple of the mines to lure them out, and then he
Mhm.
shoots what's his name? The zombie's name? The infected guy?
Mailer.
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 He shoots Mailer free
Yep, that's the
and
best thing he could have done.
lets him in, and Mailer just goes through, starts wrecking the whole all the rest of those officers.
Hmm.
It's so awesome.
Yep, so this is while this is going on, Jim is trying to break into the mansion. He breaks in through the front door or the top of the window. Breaks in and ends up getting to the fight with the macho dude and gouges his eyes out. He's covered in blood, gouging his eyes out. And then after he's done killing this guy, she comes up to him. She's like, he's standing in the darkness. He's all drenched in darkness and bloody. And she has the machete. She runs up to him and she stops. And he said, well, that was more than 10 seconds. Or that was longer than a heartbeat. And
Yeah.
because she tells him that you have to do it in a heartbeat. Don't hesitate. And she hesitated. And he said, well, that was longer than a heartbeat. And then she kisses him. And they start kissing. And that's Hannah comes in and smashes a vase over his head. And she's like, I thought he was eating you. It's like, I was kissing her. Are you stoned? Like, it's a long story.
She said, I thought he was biting your face.
Yeah, I was kissing her. Are you stoned? Because she's like completely stoned during this whole time. And they make it. They escape from the place as Mailer just kills everybody else. So when he bites one of them, they become infected, and then it exponentially grows. So the people that are left are just fighting off all the infected. So Hannah, Jim, and Selena run to the car to escape, and freaking Christopher Eccleston's character is just West is just sitting in the
back seat.
The back seat, and he shoots Jim in the stomach. And then Hannah, who we saw earlier, was learning to drive. Her dad was teaching her how to drive. But she wasn't doing a very good job. Leadfoot. Yeah. And so she backs the car.
Doing a great job.
Yeah, she was. Like whipping it around.
She didn't kill anybody.
Yeah. So she backs the car all the way up into the mansion entrance and lets Wes get taken out by Mailer. Lets him pull her out. Once he pulls West out, she drives forward, and then Selena has a hold of Jim, and then it cuts to black, and there's a title card that says 28 days later. What do you guys think of this whole third act?
When they smash into the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smash through it.
For a second.
And then
then cuts.
Yeah, it pauses.
As
you don't
like
know
a
what
freeze
happens,
frame on
and then
him.
it cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was awesome that she thought, like, oh, I'm gonna back it up so that he gets taken out by the zombie that he's kept hostage this whole time.
Yeah.
It's very poetic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And she's a race car driver in the making.
Yeah.
I'm just
what do you guys
throw that out there?
Yeah, what did you guys think when Derek, especially since you hadn't seen it in a while, when Jim gets shot, what are you guys' thoughts?
I was shocked.
Yeah, it's like devastating, right?
Oh, yeah, you made it. You're
like, of course. Yeah, and then we get that cut to the freeze frame, like you said, the freeze frame, then the cut to 28 days later, and we see a shot of her, saying, "Come on, Jim," and defibrillating him, and then he wakes up in bed, and he's got bandage around his stomach, and he looks up and sees that the curtain's gone. He says, "Oh, not the curtain now, too." And we don't know what's going on. We see Hannah making something. We just don't exactly know what's going on. And then we go outside. We follow them outside, and we see that they're like basically built. They have written with these giant. She's been sewing and creating this giant letters, and they finally build the O, and we see this plane come by, and it flies low enough, and it sees it finally, and you can see the recognition on the plane. It circles back and checks again, and they're like, "Do you think he saw us this time?" And we end on Jim looking up and smiling, and then we end. What do you guys think of the ending of this movie?
I love it. I love that they give you like a little freak out of like that dreamlike shot of the unfinished hello upside down. It just says hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, what? What is that? Why does it say that like that? It's so confusing at first, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, when the
Yeah,
O
it
drops,
comes
yeah.
together. It's awesome.
They throw it up together. Yeah. What do you think of the ending, Derek?
It ends. It's very hopeful,
Yeah.
and you get a sense that they're going to be okay, that they have survived this, and yeah, I mean they deserve it. They made it through quite a bit.
Yeah, I too like the ending. I think it's especially for, it kind of gives you kind of a hope at the end of the rainbow,
Yeah, it's very full circle type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you guys know that wasn't the original ending, right? There's an alternate ending.
I did not know that. What's the alternate ending?
So the alternate ending, there's three
Jim
alternate.
dies?
All of the endings, Jim dies. So in one ending, so two were shot, and then there's a third one that happened. Basically, yeah, and all of them he dies basically at the end of the bit. So like when he dies from the gunshot wound in each of the other endings. But in the so in the U.S. included one of the alternate endings after the film's credits in response. So yeah, it ends on a downer, more of a downer, because Jim dies, they survive. But in test screenings and thinking about it, they decided that Jim's been through enough; he should totally live, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
hate his dudes.
Yeah. Do you guys think they picked the right ending?
I do.
Yes.
I personally do.
Yeah. I agree. And I mean, I'm fine with downer endings and, the last scare, especially in a horror movie. But, I like a good hopeful ending as well. It's good to end on a good note every once in a while. Do I think that the right ending happened in Nightmare on Elm Street? No. The original happier ending was the better ending. Don't you guys agree?
100%.
Yeah. It's the more thematic
sure.
ending in that movie. So,
Yeah.
I guess we kind of like the happier endings.
I think there's a thing of like in a lot of foreign films that get brought over to the US, they give us a happier ending.
They do, yes.
like
the Descent's a good, yeah. The Descent's a good
yeah.
example of it. Yeah, I mean now that one, I think the original ending is better than the one that we got. Our ending's
Right?
our ending is nonsensical. It just doesn't make sense.
That's true.
At all. But if they didn't have it, we wouldn't have gotten the sequel. Then the sequel wouldn't have made sense. So I guess you just have to be like, yeah, I guess it is what it is. But there we go. That was 28 Days Later. Derek, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on 28 Days Later, and what's your pumpkin rating?
So Lydia, I think you did a great job picking this movie. it wasn't even on my radar, so it was a pleasure to watch this. It was really suspenseful. Pretty much the entire movie was really suspenseful. You know, it had a couple of moments there where, you know, they were shopping and things like that, and then one of the saddest scenes in cinema history when her dad dies the way he does. It made me so sad. But anyway, uh, it was a really good movie. I enjoyed watching it or rewatching it again. And I'm going to give this movie I'm going to give it an 8. I liked it a lot.
Lydia.
I didn't think much about the rating of this because it's a comfort movie for me, and so it's kind of a giveaway that I really like it. But yeah, I think this movie makes you feel a lot of things.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that's impressive. Like, the story is so good, the characters are so good. You know, the quality is terrible. But
Yeah.
but at the time it was really cool, I think, and different and unique, and I'm gonna give it a 9.
So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie as well. I think I love the way it is, the tension that arises from it. I think the writing is very good. I think the directing is very good. I think it does a very good job of displaying the emotions that we want. Like you just talked about, Lydia. Makes you feel a bunch of different things. It makes you feel them very well. And it's suspenseful. I won't say it's scary. I don't find it scary. I find it more suspenseful than scary. I'm going to give it a 7.5. And the reason it's a 7.5 instead of an 8 is because of the cinematography. I'm not crazy about it. I don't love the camera work. Like, I like certain shots of it, but I don't love the DV look. I never have. You know, Michael Mann started doing it with his movies too, Collateral, which is a great movie. And I don't love the digital look. I'm a film guy. We shoot digitally, but we, you know, try to shoot it like film. Yeah, I'll give it a 7.5 just because of the cinematography. Story, I give it an 8 because it's great. I think it's really a great movie. I enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun watching it. Glad you picked it because I hadn't seen it in such a long time. It was almost like watching it for the first time. Except for the bits I remembered, like, you know, poor Frank's death. I remembered that. That was rough. But
Real quick, because we didn't talk about it, but I think it's kind of the scene where Jim makes that transition from being a helpless person in this world to a contributor, or, like, you know what I mean, like more on the, I don't know. Anyway, his transition. You know what I'm trying to say? Not doing a great job of saying it. It's a scene where they stop to get fuel, and he goes into the building, which they tell him
we didn't
not
talk
to
about
do
it. Yeah, we totally didn't talk about it. Yeah.
And he encounters a little kid, like a little 12-year-old kid, and he's forced to beat this little kid to death with a baseball bat.
And then he walks out. Yeah.
And he wipes the bat off, and they're like, "Oh, you know, you see anything?" No. And it's a really like, that's a very definitive. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but it's kind of a pinpoint part of this movie where, you know, he more or less embraces the situation that he's now put
It's
into.
almost his loss of innocence. Yeah, it's almost his loss of innocence moment. There's a similar moment in Dawn of the Dead that we'll get to when we get to it, at a gas station, actually, as well. But yeah, it's that kind of shows you what kind of world that they have to live in, because he just has to. He has to do it, you know. That's a great scene. Yeah. Movie's great. It's filled with. What in the heck was that?
My lights are falling.
Oh, yes, I see.
Must be the
I
ghost.
thought it was a ghost. Lydia's like, don't both of you say it. You're going to manifest it. So 9, 8. I'm going to change my rating to an 8 as well because that scene made me appreciate it even more. So 9, 8, 8 for us. Yeah, all of us. Still cinematography. I'm not a big proponent of, but 9, 8, 8. So you guys, you know what time it is, don't you?
Oh, I know
It
what
is time
time it
to
is.
Atkanize 28 days later.
Thrill me.
Derek, who would the great Tom Atkins play in this film?
I would probably make him Major Payne.
Major Payne? You wanted to be
Yeah, I
Damon
forget what
Wayans?
his. Yeah, I forget who the leader, the military leader on the base, what his name was.
Oh,
West.
it is West. Yes.
Yeah, I would probably. I think he would do. I wouldn't replace Hannah's dad because I think
No,
he plays that
Brendan
part really,
Gleeson's
really,
great in
really
that.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think you could replace him because he's kind of a hard guy, and I
Yeah.
think he would play that pretty well. This one's a hard one to Atkanize because
Yeah, it is. There's not a lot of it's because there's not a lot of characters
that is
and
also true.
it's very well cast. The other
Hmm.
problem. And you don't want him to be
He
somebody
could
like
have been
Mark.
Mark.
Yeah, but Mark's only in it for 2 scenes. We need way more Atkins than that.
Yeah,
So at least
Could
with
have been a cool
West, he's in a
scene
lot
though.
more. Would have been a cool scene. But Tom Atkins doesn't get taken out by some chick with a machete. Come on. Tom Atkins. He'd have brushed it off and smoked a cigarette afterwards.
and said thrill me.
Exactly. Lydia, who's Tom Atkins playing in yours?
Well, I guess not Mark.
If you want Mark, you could do Mark.
I'm just
Yeah, go
kidding.
for it.
I think you're right. I think he would do good as the. I don't know. I think I'd rather see him as the dad than as the bad guy, though.
Because you just want to see him as somebody good, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think he would bring a lot to that character as well.
Oh, I think he would too. Brendan Gleeson is great, but Tom Atkins would have brought like a great bit to that as well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, both of those are great choices, guys. I'm having a hard time being the deciding vote on which one. Yeah, let's go with Frank. Let's go with Frank. Let's try it. We'll see how it looks, and then the next one will be easier because I know exactly who he'd play in 28 weeks later when we go into that one. So, Derek, it is your turn to pick
It is my
for
turn to
next
pick.
week. What movie are we
great.
watching? Mirror, mirror on the wall, what shitfest are we going to fall?
Oh, that's whatever. I pick great movies every time.
You
You
picked the
guys have
most
been so
popular.
impressed.
At the time of this
That is true.
recording, Lumberjack Man has over 500 views. So,
Yep. I got the special sauce, and it involves syrup.
picking movies Lydia hates? Is that
I actually
I'm
think she's gonna like
questioning
this
our
movie.
whole audience. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see.
Okay, so my original pick, I'll tell you what my original was, and I'll tell you what it actually is. I was going to lean real hard into Leprechaun because we're like right around that St. Patrick's Day. That might be my next pick. But for this pick, Lydia, I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's called Final Girl. It's a relatively recent movie. And it's I
have
love
not
it.
seen it.
do tell, where's Final Girl available?
I have no idea. I bought a copy of it because I liked it so much. So I don't know where it's streaming.
Let's find out for our audience if they don't own it.
I feel
Final
like I just
Girl
saw
is
it recently
actually
somewhere.
on Peacock. It's on Peacock. It's on Pluto TV. It's on Tubi.
Tubi or not Tubi?
Oh wait, which Final Girl is this the one with what's her face in it? Derek?
I don't
Yes.
know who What's Her Face is.
Oh, you know what's her face? Why can't I think of her name?
From The Nun.
Yes.
Let me go. Why?
It is.
From American Horror Story.
Yep.
Yes, what's her face?
Have you seen this movie,
Yeah.
Violet.
Lydia?
No,
You've
I
seen it?
haven't. I've
Oh.
I've watched the trailer several times, almost clicking it, and then I'm like, ah.
It
It's
is.
good.
Yeah,
It
I haven't
looks-
seen it
it
in
looks
a
pretty good.
while. Yes. It's Abigail Breslin. Is it the one with Abigail Breslin?
No.
Oh, so that's the one that I found that's streaming on those places. Which one is this one? Who's in
What
it?
year did it come out?
Yeah, what year did it come out?
2015.
That's the one I'm looking at right now. Final Girl. It's about they take the girl into the woods, right?
The Final Girls.
Final
Yeah,
Girls
the Final
is what.
Girls.
Jeez,
I
Derek.
guess
Get the
there's
name of the movie correct and we'll know which one we're talking about.
the
Yeah,
Final
it's got
Girls.
a bunch of people.
Goodness gracious.
Hey, you know what? On the poster, the is very small. So it's kind of like
But
Final Girls.
you didn't even pluralize it, Derek.
Yeah, you know what? We've talked about my grammar.
That's
Okay.
true. It's with Malin Ackerman. That's who you're. Okay. That's this
Yeah.
one. Let's see where this one is streaming. You know, today when you were talking to me about it, I thought you meant the Abigail Breslin movie because you just kept saying Final Girl.
Have you ever seen this
Jeez.
movie?
I have, but this is not the one I thought we were talking about. Now we know. Now I know which one you're talking about. So it is. You have to rent it on a bunch of different platforms, like Amazon Prime, or Vudu, or Apple TV. So The Final Girls is the movie we're watching next week, not the Abigail Breslin Final Girl that Derek told us it was originally. So now
Hey, you
we
know what? Honest mistake. Honest mistake.
That's true. That's true. Could happen to anyone who can't spell. So... I'm kidding. I'm
So mean to
kidding.
me.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know I'm joking. I mean, not about you not being able to spell. That is a true statement. But I'm just
That is a
joking
true
about the
statement.
whole
I don't
situation.
deny I don't deny it.
You know how to spell girls.
I do know to spell girls.
G-U-R-L-S.
I have not looked at the title
Z.
in quite a while.
Z. Girls. Yeah. No, now I know exactly which movie you're talking about. It's The Final Girls. It is a horror comedy. It is starring Malin Ackerman. You can find it on Hulu, Amazon Prime, YouTube, all those places you can rent it. So that's our movie for next week. Do you guys have any other final thoughts before we talk about The Final Girls next week? And any other final thoughts on 28 Days Later?
Don't think so.
Derek?
Like and subscribe. Share.
Yes, like, share, subscribe. You can find Lydia on Twitter at Lydia is Spooky. You can find Derek on Twitter at DDogLeemaster. You can find me on Twitter at Racket. You can find us on Facebook at Hyla Productions, Instagram at Scream Bloody Movies. You can find us on the internet at hylaproductions.com. We'll be posting a couple new videos here in the next couple weeks that'll be of interest. Be sure to comment on the videos, share them. Let's grow as far as the eye could see. And let's keep on keeping on and making horror content. So if there's nothing else, you guys, for Derek Lemaster and Lydia Judy, I am Jamie Hiles. Remember, if you're going to scream, Scream bloody movies.
Scream bloody movies.
You went way too fast that time.
I was just gonna cut you guys completely out. I was just gonna
Wow.
do it like I was
Like
Robert Stack, like Unsolved Mysteries.
you changed up
That's
your
how we
cadence
should do it every time.
a lot.
Just
Yeah.
want me just to do it?
We all need to just do it fast.
You ready? We'll
You
try
know
it.
what? Let's. Yep.
So for Derek Lemaster and Lydia Judy, I'm Jamie Hiles. And remember, if you're going to scream bloody
Scream bloody
movies.
Bloody
movies.
movies.
That was somehow worse.
That was pretty bad.
Let's try it one more time. I'm going to count us. Ready? 1,
Yep.
2, 3. Scream bloody
Scream
movies.
bloody
Scream bloody movies.
I feel like we're Lethal Weapon. You want to go? So on 3 or 1, 2, 3, then go.
So
We
this
never
kinda
go
how
on
it's
3.
playing out.
Oh, Scream bloody movies. Talk to you next week, folks.